I'm sure you all recognize this. The Some Girls album, their big comeback album. And this is the good one where they got sued over using all these photos without their permission. Okay, so as Marina already said, I moved to LA in the summer of 1978, and I decided to quit failing at the music program at UC San Diego, and my parents told me to get a job in my own place. A few friends in Hollywood got in touch looking for a drummer for their bands, and I figured, why not? And one of the bands was called Audio Vidiot, and we kind of split in two, and half became Viva Beat, and half became the Vidiots. Anyhow, there was little work for musicians in San Diego other than playing cover songs at bars and clubs. I told my disappointed parents that I was heading up the coast, loading my VW up with my drums, and drove north. I crashed at my old band friends from La Jolla, Dave and Wiggy, on their living room floor on Larrabee in West Hollywood. And I got a job delivering booze at Turner's Liquor on the Strip at the corner of Larrabee and Sunset, right next door to Filthy McNasty's. And so I got to know Filthy as well. He was a monster of a guy. After that, he moved out to the Valley and had the FM station, if anybody remembers that. It was easy to get the job, and I found out that you can always work in LA if you can drive and know the area. I decided to tell this story because I told this story 7 years ago at Burger Joint in Santa Monica on Main Street. So if you were there, sorry, but you've probably forgotten it anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So I decided to tell the story because they're going to be tearing Turner's down along with the Viper Room next door and the rest of that block. And 7 years ago is when that first happened, and now they went through bankruptcies and everything like that, but now they're finally going to build that monstrosity there. Anyhow, Turner's had a couple of company vehicles for delivery, an orange VW thing with top-down fun. I love driving that. And also a pastel green AMC Gremlin, which had a Javelin motor in it, and that little car with bald tires, and that motor just gutting up Sunset Plaza or any of those streets in the hills was a breeze. It was a busy delivery service to Hollywood entertainment offices during the day and lazy drunks at night. Of course, there were many thirsty celebrities as well. Football hero, actor Jim Brown, Nichelle Nichols, who was Lieutenant Uhura on Star Trek, the great lush jockey Willie Shoemaker, and Brian Wilson for the Beast Boys, and his mom, who would order groceries and lots of treats to keep his kids happy. She lived like a mile from him. He lived up in Coldwater at the time, and she lived up above Doheny, and she was taking care of his kids because he was a little Brian Wilson-y. And Mark Lindsay from Paul Revere and the Raiders had a recording studio called Larrabee Sound on Larrabee in Santa Monica, and we delivered there regularly. And Jack Nicholson and Marlon Brando shared a gated compound off of Mulholland. And Joan Jett and the Runaways had a party crash pad a block away on San Vicente and Sunset across the street from the Whiskey. And they were underage, so we always just delivered to them because nobody's going to check in on that. And we'd make large deliveries to Rock Hudson's house. He lived on one of the bird streets up above Sunset off of Doheny. He had a big pool that had little cherub statues that were peeing water into the pool. And sometimes when I was driving out the gate, some female fans would jump out with their Instamatic cameras thinking that maybe Rock would be in the car, but he never was. The store also had a direct line to the Sunset Marquis Hotel where the rich musicians partied, and the Tropicana Hotel where the poorer ones hung out. The day manager at Turner's was a middle-aged man who called himself Queen Billy. The name suited him, but he ran the store like it was his own. There were two other managers there, Steve, a partying drug dealer, and Bill, who's a night manager, and he had been there for decades, and he would sit there looking at the racing form, looking for long shot horse to bet on in Santa Anita, and he had his glasses purchased down at the end of his nose, and he had a cigarette dangling from his mouth with a long ash trail just waiting to fall onto his paper. One day, Queen Billie was really excited about a big delivery. Guitarist Ron Wood had rented a house up on Sunset Plaza Drive while the Rolling Stones were preparing for their Some Girls tour. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, there it is. That album was a saving grace for me, with their songs playing on the delivery car's AM disco radio. When I made my first delivery, Keith Richards and Ron Wood answered the door and expected the goods. The delivery consisted of cartons of Marlboro, French Gaulois, filterless cigarettes, a case of Heineken, a case of Jack Daniels, a case of Olympia beer, and also a lot of groceries. We actually would go down to the Vons on Santa Monica and Robertson and get all the stuff they wanted, because they wanted like bread and sandwich making materials and all that stuff. And it was all in a day's work. And they also had a request to find Pim's #1 cup, which is a British mixed drink, and it comes in little bottles. And I called all of our booze distributors, and some of them had the Pim's #2, but that wouldn't do. I finally called the King's Head pub out in Santa Monica, and they had it, and I arranged to buy a case of it and drove out to get it. We figured the Stones would order more than one bottle, which they did, of course, so it wasn't a waste of time or money. The Stones ordered pretty much the same thing every day. They liked the store T-shirts we wore, so we would toss some of them along with the order to hope that maybe they would wear them out in public or something like that. All the band members were cool, except for Mick. He would come in the room, he would just stare against the wall like this until I left. But Keith would come in and he'd grab the hand truck from me, and one time he faked like he was going to throw it in the pool, and actually a couple of the cases went into the pool. I wasn't going to go get it, so he did. He was in his cut-off Levi's. It was very, very quaint. At one of the rehearsals with Audio Vidiot, we were all talking about this possibility of a secret show with the Rolling Stones. They were famous for doing that, and they still do that. They did one at the Echoplex downtown on their last tour. They usually played a club gig or two before they started the world tour. The local gossip was that it would probably be one of the reggae star Peter Tosh's Starwood Club shows, since Tosh was on Rolling Stone Records, and they were going to be the opening act for that Some Girls tour. And Jagger and Tosh had a reggae cover of the Temptations' Walk and Don't Look Back out on the radio. I'm sure you all remember that. There were 4 shows on 2 successive nights. The question was, would it be the early, late, which day? So we all thought about it. We decided we'd go for first show, first night. And we purchased our tickets. There was a big line of people to get there, so we were lucky to get them, because a lot of other people either figured it out or heard the rumors. And it was crazy at the Starwood the night that we were waiting for. There are lots of people milling around the corner of Crescent Heights and Santa Monica Boulevard. Usually the club parking lot was open, but that night they had the chain link fence fully closed and secure, and only open it for the people that had tickets like us. And the sheriffs ended up showing up with it. They already had a lot of extra security, and the sheriffs were in the area, and they cordoned off the block. Back then, West Hollywood was an unincorporated area, so it was pretty much anything goes. The sheriffs didn't really care, and there was no city government like that. It was all the supervisors who could care less, the LA County supervisors. Where was I? So there were TV shows, TV news vans there, which meant even more onlookers showed up. And Dave and I finally got in. It was more packed than I'd ever seen at the Starwood. We got pretty close to the front. And the Hot 100 Club upstairs was overflowing with the celebs and wannabe celebs. We were fairly close to the stage, and Dave pointed out and mentioned to me that, oh, there's Keith Richards' Mesa Boogie on stage. Yes. And so that was an affirmation for us, and we had picked the right night. Finally, Tosh's band came down the stairs from backstage, plugged into their amps. No Stones. Then Tosh's bass player started playing the opening hook for the song Miss You, and the place went nuts. Still no Stones. The band started playing. The first song was Bob Marley and the Wailers, 400 Years. And they played a lot of other songs, including Legalize It and Get Up, Stand Up, but no Stones. There was a lot of weed going on stage and in the audience. Legalize it, why not? And they played their set and they got off. And there was rumors floating around the room, and we found out more stuff once we filed out from that first show. And the second show was waiting to get in. Supposedly, there were some Stones in the clubs backstage, and others were supposed to arrive in an ambulance. But by the time the show started, there were hundreds of people milling around the outside of the club, and when they heard the bass riff, the horde started trying to get in. They were climbing and pushing on the fence, and it was a near riot, and there was no way the band members could sneak in and perform. If they were going to play, they were either told not to or they chickened out. I made a delivery to Ron Wood's house a day or so after, and Keith answered the door. During the delivery, I couldn't help myself when I mentioned the Peter Tosh show and the Stones not playing. Keith waved it off, stating that they were never actually said they were going to play, and it was just a rumor. And I, of course, had to say, but your Mesa Boogie was sitting on stage. And he wasn't ready for that, so he thought about it for a minute and said sarcastically, that was to fool the in crowd. I felt put in my place. The Stones ordered once and twice more as they started their tour at Anaheim Stadium a few days later. I worked at Turner's for several months more after that summer, and I was asked to work on New Year's Eve. Back then, when West Hollywood was unincorporated, it was wide open. They decided to close off Sunset Boulevard from Doheny over to Tower Records. And it was just people milling around, going to Filthy McNasty's, into the Roxy, the Whiskey, you name it, all the clubs there. I forget what was the name of the one that was next to the Whiskey. No, that Rainbow's further down. The upstairs one. No, on the Rocks. No, on the Rocks is at the Roxy. Never mind. It turned into the Cat Cat Club later. But anyhow, that's another one. Sorry about that. But this was actually upstairs right next to it. Johnny Carson used to own it at one point. So anyways, where was I? So it was a wild, innocent pre-AIDS and pre-Reagan party for the throngs of flamboyantly reveling gays and fucked up youth. That night was like Potterville from A Wonderful Life. People were walking around with drinks and drugs like Bourbon Street. We decided to drink some Dom Perignon out of a plain paper bag at the liquor store, like the winos do with Night Train. The store was packed with patrons, and I earned my champagne. The store had to close at 2 a.m., even though all those drunks were pounding on the glass doors trying to keep the night going. Things at Turner's went downhill from there. The store owner, Jason Turner, got strung out, was stealing money and booze to trade for his habit. His mother, Faye, had to come back and help run the store. They had us all take lie detector tests. Steve, the drug dealer manager I mentioned earlier, gave me a Quaalude to minimize any damage. The guy that was administering the test said, I looked tired, and asked me if I wanted some coffee. And I said, nah, I'm fine. And I declined, and I passed the test. Several employees were canned, and the night manager, Bill, was done with the drama, and he retired. Due to the attrition, I was promoted to night manager, which was way too much responsibility for a 19-year-old punk. Dealing with the employees, bad checks, shoplifters, small-time criminals was not fun. Having to close up shop at 2 a.m. and it interfered with my punk rock lifestyle. I started to sip some of the product at work and drink myself to sleep. Movies Till Dawn on Channel 5 was my drinking pal. I was caught drinking and fired from the job. Yay. This turned out to be the best thing that could happen to me. I got another job working for a Hollywood international freight forwarder who handled shipments for the movie studios and record labels. But that's another story for another time. A while back, I found one of my old Turner shirts. It was in one of my drum cases. Oops, I don't know what that was. So this is the shirts what we wore. And on the back, this is when everything was 213. You didn't have all the area codes in front. What's that? Crestview? Right, okay. That's like what is it?
27.
Yeah, and that was the restaurant that was Gladstone's. Gladstone's 4Fish is GL4Fish. That was their phone number. So there you go. That was that wasn't necessary, but anyhow, that's my story. Thank you.